following, listening to our neighborhood famous Chef Alan Susser. Tonight's program is basically about spices, learning about the spices of the Caribbean. And Chef Alan is an expert in this, having worked in the Caribbean and developing a cookbook on spices in the Caribbean. Chef, we are very happy to have you here again. We have a lot of people. We're going to have over 50 people coming this evening, and we're going to ask everybody to please put on your video, but put on mute also, unless you're speaking. So let's get started, and Chef Alan, it's all up to you.
Okay, well, welcome. Everyone's hearing me? Okay, good. Well, a pleasure to be here with you. And this is about spices of the Caribbean. Spices really are, it's a wonderful component of cooking. So many people don't take advantage of utilizing spices. And that's kind of what I wanted to share, a little bit of how to make a spice mixture, as well as where they come from, a little bit of a history and background to spices, and kind of how it all ended up in the Caribbean, and really how lucky we are to be here in South Florida and be so close to the Caribbean and the influences of all of the spices from around the world. And so that's kind of where we're starting off with this. As you can see, this is a fun slide that I picked up. Spices actually go back to biblical days. You talk about Joseph in the Bible, who got sold off to spice traders in the desert before he went back down to Egypt. And so that spices have been trading for centuries. Where are these spices coming from? At this point, this is an overland route, and the spices are coming in from China and India into the Middle East, and then it would travel again overland into Europe. And kind of, at this point, we are thinking very Eurocentric, which I'm not necessarily a fan of at the moment, but being Eurocentric in spices, even though most of the spices originated in India, China, Southeast Asia, and also the islands of the Pacific. But they moved and followed through. So they came with the explorers. The explorers kind of changed the pattern. And very interesting how cuisine changes with the idea of modern communication and modern transportation, where we've gone from an overland route for spices. Now spices started to be explored or gone after, because out of Europe, the explorers traveled out of Europe. The Portuguese, the English, the Dutch went out to look for spices because this was an exotic commodity. And, we're always thinking about our stomachs. We're always thinking about how to make it more flavorful and more delicious. And that's kind of what this is about, how to make it more flavorful and delicious. And so that the spices have been going around the world like this for forever. Here you see the type of ships that we're traveling eventually. Kind of, you can see this is a little thing of a spice route traveling back and forth through the China, India, into the Middle East, and then around the different ways, so that the Portuguese actually spearhead a way around Africa to India. And it was the English and the Spanish that went towards the Americas, wasn't called the Americas, and landed in the West Indies. And that's kind of where you sort of start the trade of the spices. They thought they landed in India with the spices, and really they didn't find a whole lot of spices in the Caribbean where they landed. But there were other things. There were chilies, and there were a couple of different spices that we'll get into a little bit later, of the origins of those spices. So here, as I suggest, this is spices of the Caribbean, and this is what the ships that they would travel in. Now, just to give you an idea of the value of these spices, a ship like this probably can have about 4 or 5 tons of spices. Now, if this was peppercorns coming from India, on the streets of India, Mumbai, 500 years ago in the 1490s, etc., spices would come in at it would cost on the street, let's say it was $1 a pound for spices, for peppercorns. Now, when it brought it back into Europe through the travels, the wars that they had to the fights, the weather, the ships that went, the explorers turned into merchants, and these merchants would come into port in London or in Amsterdam, and the price of those peppercorns that started off was $1 a pound, now had a value of $10,000. Okay, so talk about modern Bitcoin. Here you go. The idea of taking spices, something like that, that was utilized, and it really got monetized. And so that this is kind of really where the world started changing over our spices and the value of spices. Here's a little picture of a spice market in the Caribbean. And the Caribbean is very interesting because I kind of want to point out the Caribbean got settled by lots of different cultures: the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the British, the French, and they were all using this for a lot of different things. One of the things that was going on was the spice trade. So this was a part of the area that sort of their ships would land in after they conquered it, which was not a great thing. They conquered these lands and then started to set up plantations for sugarcane. Sugarcane turned to sugar and rum and molasses, but also as a way to waylay from Europe into around the coast and into the Pacific, where they were picking up spices. So this is currently what a spice market would look like in one of the islands in the Caribbean. Here's my wife enjoying some fun spices in Grenada. She's actually got a cocoa pod in her hand. But life in the Caribbean is about the spices, about the fun, the flavors, the colors of the food, and so that's kind of why I threw that one in. Looking in St. Lucia, where I do work, some of my consulting is in St. Lucia. And cooking. I work with a resort called Jade Mountain, but they've got a number of farmers markets, and I find farmers markets to be very interesting. I think that it's a space to find the culture, find where people are trading and breathing and working, and you really get a sense of what's being eaten there. And also finding the spice markets in the Caribbean is really nice because each island has their own influences. As I said, St. Lucia has the influence of the French and the English. Actually, they warred over it for 2 centuries, and 14 different wars of French and English control left it in the hands of the English, and then they finally became independent in the past century, and they're an independent island. You have the Dutch islands, you have the French islands. Martinique, if you go to Martinique, today is France. It's not it's really a part of you step into France. So that part of the world still exists with that, and spices play a big role in the cuisine, in what's being cooked in people's pots and pans, and kind of that. And they have also started to grow that. There's a lot of spices that are being grown in the Caribbean from plants that were transplanted. Most of these spices did not start off there in that fashion. So here, talking about some of the transplants that we've got, nutmeg and mace. Nutmeg and mace is actually the same ingredient. It's the same fruit. As you can see on the edge of this center nut is a little mace outside, a netting. That's called mace. It's a spice. And then nutmeg is the inside, which is the seed of that, and also really pungent, aromatic, used a lot for baking. But also, I'll tell you what, if you've had a hot chocolate with nutmeg and mace in it. It's awesome. You know, so it's also used in different coconut breads and things like that, as well as for spicing sausages. So kind of very interesting. And you'll see here the combination, because most spices, because they're live plants, they come from plants, they're buds and seeds and twigs from live plants. So here you see the drying process. Here the mace on the left-hand side is being dried on this big platform. You can see the nutmeg and mace together there being dried. And then on the right-hand side actually are these big drawers that come out of the this hut that they dry on, and they're on sort of rails that got pushed in at night and then pulled out in the sun. So they're sun drying the spices in this sort of fashion. A lot of spices are dried like that, and also cacao is dried in that sort of fashion as well. So here's cinnamon. Cinnamon, there's a couple different types of cinnamon. There's a cassia, which is often grown in like Mexico and South America. There's Saigon cinnamon, which is a very pungent cinnamon. There is also cinnamons that come out of Sri Lanka, India, and China as well. And so cinnamon has a really wonderful warming flavor. And I think that in talking about spices, you talk about heat, you talk about warmth, you talk about warming. When I say warming, it's sort of warming the inside of your body. It gives you a sensation and also a comfort. And so that these are components, when you think about cooking with cinnamon, you can think about utilizing it to sort of ease the stomach, but also as a comfort for lots of memories. And we eat and drink and think about memories, and cinnamon kind of brings back lots of one. We just have gone through the holidays. Now the holidays, we think of those spices of cinnamon. Allspice is actually one of the few spices that actually originates in the Caribbean. It got named allspice because, first off, they thought it was peppercorns, and you know, Columbus and his band of merry people were thrilled to find this, but they realized that it was not peppercorns, and they were so happy about it. And you know, sort of, it's said that these spices have the sort of flavors of almost a combination of nutmeg and coriander and clove and peppercorn. So they named it allspice. Okay, very often the main place that this has been grown, and although it's throughout the Caribbean right now, has been Jamaica. Okay, so Jamaica in their jerk seasonings talk about a Creole spice or a Caribbean spice. Jerk seasoning is all about the allspice and the flavor, because actually when you take the bark of the tree and they're cooking over that bark, and that smokiness is coming in. So you're using the spice for marinating the meats, whether it's chicken or pork, and then it's cooked over the allspice woods, and that smokiness and the intensity is a wonderful layering of flavors and spices. Cloves are interesting because this is the bud. It's actually a dried bud of a small bush, and the clove, you can see, has a little bit of a ball at the top and has the sort of stem going on there. And the cloves are very pungent. Usually you only need 1 or 2 cloves when you're talking about utilizing cloves, but it's also good for the digestion. And that's very often, besides the flavors, which are very strong flavors, but I'm a real fan of clove in cooking. Cumin is a very interesting, and this is actually one of the spices that comes out of the Mediterranean. Now, cumin is very much of used throughout the world very often. This is the whole seed, although most of us don't see a whole seed up close here. In a little bit, I'll show you actually how we're going to toast the cumin seeds and crush them to look at how we get fine ground cumin. Okay, so that's going to be one of our projects as we get into the kitchen. This is just so everyone listening, this is first we're doing this PowerPoint where I'm sharing with you about the spices. Then we're going to get into the kitchen and we'll have some fun. I'll show you about mixed spicing and then also cooking a recipe with this as well. So cumin has a really earthy, wonderful flavor, big aromatics as well with that. Now here's a interesting plant that we actually like to use both the seed and the leaves. You're familiar with cilantro. Cilantro is really yummy and delicious. Although I will say there are a rare few who think it tastes soapy. And I'm not one of those folks. I think it's a wonderful, springy sort of refreshing flavor. Love that in ceviche, love that in marinades. And then the coriander is actually very, very widely used in European French cuisine. French use the coriander, which means then it's used in the French islands. The French influences comes into the French islands. So coriander is used in the marinades of pickling. The basic spice in pickling is coriander and black peppercorns, okay, and a couple of cloves, and that's kind of really where you start off with pickling, and so the whole world pickles, but that coriander flavor is really tremendous. So this is used both ways in that. Then we get into spice mixtures, okay? There's hundreds of spice mixtures. In India, you know, we think about curry, and that's actually a spice mixture. It's not an individual spice. It's a mixture of lots of different spices that we think of as curry. They actually don't call it a curry. They call it, there's lots of different names for that mixture. And each grandmother has their own spice mixture. And this is true in the Caribbean as well. And why put flavors like this? It's an exotic flavor. This is sort of, these mixtures come together, and as opposed to being a singular definition of a singular flavor, as you blend and mix these flavors, they become more interesting. They add more texture and flavor to what you're cooking. And there's actually different ways of putting spices in. Some spices go into a mixture dry. Other spices go into a mixture that go as it sort of heated up, and so that the essential oils get released. And then some release the essential oils in butter or oil. And so that's different ways of adding in the spices into a recipe. A quick note and a quick break. I welcome you to Jade Mountain, because I want you to see where we have a 30-acre organic farm at Jade Mountain, and we grow a lot of these spices. So I'm really excited about being out there. Today, I'm not out there. Today, I'm around the corner from you. But very often you'll find me out in Jade Mountain. And those are the Piton Mountains in St. Lucia. That's a World Heritage Site. And this restaurant overlooks, the whole resort overlooks that. And just to give you a quick picture of what we're going to do here. This is actually a spiced fish, and I love to do spiced fishes. This spiced fish is actually lionfish with plantains underneath, but we're going to take and utilize the spice that we have on this fish. I'm going to do a different recipe. But I'll tell you about lionfish as we get along. We stay focused on spices. Here again, spicy lionfish tacos. This is all out of my new cookbook. These crispy curry lionfish, green fig and lionfish, which is actually at the library, but just a wonderful cookbook, kind of talk about sustainable Caribbean cooking. And that's really where I've taken this recipe that we're going to do tonight in that. So I'll leave that, and I'm actually going to step away from the desk and go into the kitchen so we can start our kitchen activities. So it'll take just a moment here as I run into the kitchen. And I'm actually going to, let's see if I can set this up so you get my kitchen view. How do I drop my screen on this? I've got to drop my screen 1 second. Bear with me. Share screen, no. Okay, hold on 1 second. If someone can help me drop my screen.
Okay.
Maybe that will do it.
There you go.
Okay, so am I live on? Do
Yes.
I have a live screen?
Yes, you do.
Okay, Then you see my kitchen spot?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay.
Fern, I'm still seeing the screen. No one else is seeing the screen?
I'm seeing the sign, I'm seeing his picture, the book.
Right.
Now
He doesn't
seeing
want
you.
that. He wants to
Okay,
drop
so
that.
you may want to switch over to the screen or not. So you see my kitchen screen, you see me here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alan, it was suggested you stop sharing your first screen to get the kitchen enlarged. Can you stop sharing the PowerPoint?
Okay, sorry about that.
He's-
Yeah,
That's what I'm asking. How
We're
to
learning
do
as we
that?
go along.
that's exactly why it's not sharing, because you already have one screen sharing.
Right.
So how do I turn this off?
Stop sharing your other Alan Susser.
Stop. Okay, it says stop video.
No,
Share,
no, no.
Share content.
Don't share content.
Yeah, I don't see where to cancel that.
Can you
Okay, so
drop
wait.
the other screen?
I'm gonna, maybe what we have to do is get him off of being the co-host. I don't know which,
Let's see.
Alan, I think what I'm gonna do is get you
Switch
off.
to speaker view. We were advised.
Switch to
Alan,
speaker view.
Switch to speaker view.
Mm-mm. Thanks, Ruben, but the problem is that Alan has two different screens on. So he needs to get rid of one screen.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. Give me just one moment. I'll turn off the other screen.
Yes.
Okay.
At this moment, I'd like to give a thank you to the Friends of the Stirling Road Library for offering programs such as this to our community and to you, members of the Stirling Road Library Friends. And we are friends, and it's a special group, and we're so thrilled to invite you to share an evening with us and learn about ALLSPICE and cumin and everything else I didn't know about. So,
Okay, how does
here
that
we go.
work?
Much better. There you
And
go.
Come back in.
Yes.
Okay, so here's how we're going to do this. So I've got my spices here in front of me. A pleasure to join me in the kitchen. Thank you. Sorry for the little hiccup as we move through. But so what I'm going to do is make a spice mixture, a Creole spice mixture with a couple of the spices that we've already talked about. Okay, with this, I'm going to start off with cumin. Okay, cumin, as you can see here, is in seed form. So when it's in seed form, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to turn the stove on here a second, because what I want to do is toast the cumin seeds for this. You can use dry ground cumin for this recipe, and you don't have to. But what I want to do is show you some of the components of how to deal with spices and utilize spices, because some of them are whole. So that's like, here is my whole coriander. And you'll see that whole coriander, those little beads of coriander. Although I'm not going to grind those, and I have that ground. And also I've got my whole ALLSPICE, which I've also taken and ground. So those are all viable spices. These are the spices. So for cooking spices, when you know, one of the ways that I like to utilize spices is to take the spice in a dry pan. Okay, it has no oil in it, and I'm heating this up, and this is how we toast the spice. So it's kind of, you can do this in the oven as well if you want to put into a 325 degree. You don't want it to be too hot, because what happens, the spices will start to burn very quickly. But you put them in here. I'm just going to take it and shake it. And it does not take long, actually, for this to come together. If you were here and this was smell-o-vision, you would start to smell all these wonderful spices, all the wonderful warmth of the cumin seed. Okay, and what's happening is the cumin seed is starting to release the essential oils. The essential oils are really where a lot of that flavor is. The flavor that comes from the essential oils, which is essentially the flavor profile that you have in there. So as you can see here, I'm taking it and toasting that. It's almost ready. You want to get that going. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is use a mortar and pestle here in just a moment for crushing this. Oh, wow, it starts smelling really good. Okay, so I'm going to take some of that in here. Okay, mortar and pestle, there's all sorts of mortar and pestles, but this one I like, it works, it's clean, but just taking it and crushing the seeds now, okay? And in that sort of fashion, you're crushing the seeds, it's releasing all of those sweet cumin flavors right now, which is really nice. So if we, again, here, beautiful, I just want you to, not sure if you can quite see inside. With this cumin, I'm not going to crush it down to a fine powder. Okay, it would work in a fine powder, but here in utilizing the spice, I'm going to use it for texture as well. So taking that and crushing it down, but leaving it. What we can also do is utilize something like this, which I'm not going to do, but a coffee grinder. Okay, but a coffee grinder assigned just for spices. Do not use this for coffee and spices. Both will not be successful. So I have a coffee grinder for coffee. I have another one for spices. So with this, one of the tools of a spice mixer is, guess what? Okay, a measuring spoon. My grandmother would not say so, but you know, if you want to be accurate about what you're doing, you need a mix, you know, you need to measure carefully, especially with spices. Sometimes you're working with spices and chilies that are very hot other times. So you want to have a regular balance with that. So with this, I've got about 2 tablespoons of the cumin. And now I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons. And now I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of the coriander. So with that, I'm going to add 1. And so I kind of measure it off, 2 of coriander. I'm also going to add 1 of allspice. Okay, so allspice is going to go in there. With that, also, I've got some ginger. Okay, ginger we didn't talk about yet, but ginger is utilized as a spice. It's actually a ribosome. It's a root that's really pungent and flavorful. And here I'm going to use fresh ginger as well as dry ginger. I'm going to use the dry ginger in the spice mixture. And then I'm going to use fresh ginger as we're going to be cooking our fish in a few minutes. With that also, I've actually got a ½ teaspoon. So let me find my ½ teaspoon measure. And on ½ teaspoon, I'm going to add some cinnamon. Okay, gonna again flatten it out. So you add the cinnamon in, and I also like some heat. So I'm going to add some crushed red pepper flakes with that as well in that. So we've got a nice spice mixture. Just for comment here, most spice mixtures in reality do not have salt. Okay, salt is not necessarily a spice, but we love to have salt. So if you're making a spice mixture, I would first start off with mixing the spices, okay? And then if you have a need for it, you can either add salt to the mixture or you can add salt to the actual individual ingredient, as an individual ingredient, as you're making something, as you're cooking it. So I think that's kind of the differential that you'll see in spice mixtures. And sometimes when you're talking about spice mixtures that you buy in the store, they can be salty. Okay, so that's why I like to make my own spices, put in the sort of components that I want to put in, and add flavor to it. Okay, so again, this is a really nice mixture here. As you can see, it's got a little bit of texture. It's going to be hard to see, but it's got a little bit of texture going on here. But into this, just for today, I also want this to be a finished spice, actually. So I'm going to put about a teaspoon of salt into it, and then finish crushing that together and mixing this. Now this I call a Creole spice mixture. This Creole spice mixture, actually, you could be, I'm not sure if anyone's making it at home along with me, but recipe is easy, recipe is in the book. And actually what I'm going to do today is, if you go to my Instagram account, I will, and sign up there, I'm gonna share 3 bags of this spice. I'll send it out to you. So you'll see a spot in my Instagram for signing up for this, and I'll send you the spice as well as the recipe for this. So kind of have fun with it at the same time. So that's our spice mixture. I'm gonna get these and just put them aside for a moment so we can move on to the recipe component of this. This is obviously a recipe, no doubt about it. I also want to show you right here, I've got what I call my spice box. Okay, this actually I bought out of Southeast Asia, this spice box, and this is kind of would be sitting, when I had Chef Allen's, this is what I had on the counter when I was spicing and seasoning. These are the types of things. So it has little components. It's a great little box, and it's probably about 150 years old, and the spices I put in there, and just kind of really wonderful sort of way of utilizing the spices and keeping them handy. And that's something actually I didn't talk about, and I'm sorry, I should talk about spices, because one of the things that people do, they don't think that to utilize spices often, and most people don't like to utilize spice, and so that what happens is your spices get old. You buy a big container of spices in the supermarket, or you get in as a present, you get a little spice rack, and that spice sits for 2, 3, 4, 10 years. I got a question for you. Anyone out there have their spice rack that's the spices that are more than 10 years old? All right, nobody's admitting it. I know, because your sound is off. So. But the spices, I encourage you to buy spices in smaller containers. I also encourage you to get the spices, and after about 3-4 years, I would say 2 years, but after about 3-4 years, get rid of them, utilize them up, and get new spices, because they lose their pungency, they lose their flavor. And if you're going to use spices, you want them to be wonderful and fresh and aromatic, because that's why you utilize spice. That's why you're putting spice into this. And spice, as we're talking about, is not all about heat. It's not about making it spicy. It's about making it aromatic. It's about cooking with flavor. It's about cooking in that sort of fashion. So that's kind of really what the spices are about. And again, spices of the Caribbean, there's so many cultures in the Caribbean that the people living in the Caribbean love spices, and it's utilized in one pot cooking, as well as grilling, as well as smoking, as well as pan frying. Whatever there's always a spices going in. And that's what I love about Caribbean cooking. At Chef Allen's, a lot of my influences of the food that I was doing at Chef Allen's was actually the spices of the Caribbean, utilizing these spices that I'm sharing with you today in different combinations for putting a crust on something, for seasoning, for making stews and stocks and sauces. So much can be utilized in spices, and very often we don't. And so that's kind of what I'm sharing with you today. Okay, so what I want to do, I'm going to just put this aside for a moment because we got another one of my favorite ingredients, mangoes. So I got news for you. If you look up around the neighborhood, which most of you are living in the neighborhood, I don't know if you've noticed it, but this week, the mango trees in your backyards and neighbors' backyards is starting to bloom. Okay, there's little buds on there. The flowers are coming up, the shoots are coming out. Now we're in January, we're not in mango season. Okay, but these mango trees are starting to bloom. And so there's little pea-sized mangoes that you're gonna see, and the beautiful flush across the whole top. And go outside tomorrow and look, because it's got, this is the first week. Last week they weren't there. These flowers are coming on the trees, that big broad trees. There's different color flowers, there's different color mangoes, different varieties of mangoes in each of these. And so that's kind of what we've got out there. But take a look, because this is a really cool time of year, but it will take about 6 months to get that from here till June. So January through to June, depending on the variety. There's some early varieties that may start to be able to have mangoes ripe in May, June, July, and August. That's kind of the season. And as you know, there's hundreds of different varieties of mangoes. Okay, this mango here comes to us from South America, but it's a beautiful, delicious mango. And with this mango, this is a kit mango, so that the shell is usually green like that, but it doesn't mean it's not ripe. So this is plenty ripe, and so that what I'm going to do is take it and cut through. So I get 2 cheeks of mango there. As you'll also see, I'm going to take a smaller knife and kind of take the mango here, and that's kind of where we get 2 fingers of mango. So I will excuse myself for a moment, because this is the best part of the mango. Delicious. Okay, so we have our mango cheek. What we do is choke up on the knife so that you can cut through. So what I do is cut through and kind of spin around and cut like here I'm going to cut a diamond shape. Okay, for that. And when we have a diamond shape, we're going to take it and pop that, and that's going to be our garnish for later. I'm going to put that. So with this mango, I'm going to take it, and again, kind of cutting through in one direction. And this is going to be square, so it's going to be like a checkerboard, back down and back down with this. And then what I do is take a spoon. Okay, just going to take a spoon. I've got a little container here. And for diced mango, we just scoop out the shell of the mango. And you've got some diced mango. I got some pop in here. So this is going to be for our recipe. The rest of this I actually want to take and put into it. So I'm going to just take it and cut the flesh on this one and on the finger here. Okay, and cut that in half so that we can take it and kind of dice that in a similar size. So we utilize the whole mango and put that into our dish, because we're going to use that for cooking. Okay, so we're doing good so far. I just prepared the mango. Going into this as well, you're going to see we've got some lime juice and orange juice, as well as some more aromatics. So here I'm going to, again, put on our stovetop, get my pan here warmed up. And that's really one of the most important things, is to warm up a pan for cooking, so that when whatever you're going to put in actually gets hot and cooks through, because that's really where you're going to get a nice crust, then a texture with that. So as I preheat this, I actually got some mahi. Okay, mahi is a beautiful fish, one of the sustainable fish means that it's caught sustainably, which means it's not over caught. Most of the mahi is caught by hook and line. So nice fresh mahi. And what I mean by sustainability and sustainable fish is selecting fish that is not overfished, coming from clean waters, so that there's always more in the water, so we don't pull out too much of the population and lose the fish. We want to make sure that we have enough fish for our kids, their grandkids, and further on. So that's what sustainability and sustainable fish is all about. So taking these nice fillets, what I'm going to do is take our spice here, okay, and liberally, I'm going to spice the fish. I'm going to take it and season both sides. Okay, smells great. Okay, this is really coming out. The flavors, the cumin that we toasted, you've got some beautiful cumin flavors that are happening here. So this is the fish, and the pan is warmed up. I'm going to start off with a little bit of olive oil in our pan. And I'm going to warm up the olive oil as well. Okay, spread it out enough to cover the bottom. Modest heat, so we're going to just bring that up a little bit. And this is going to go in. So when I do fish, there's a top and a bottom. Okay, the skin side this is the skin side, and then this is the interior side of the fish. So usually I put the interior side first, skin side up if there's no skin. If there is skin on a fish, I actually put the skin down first. So that's kind of so that it gets crispy. So with this, I'm going to put this into the pan and start that off. I'm going to put this the opposite way and get that starting to cook. Okay, so now our other ingredients that we're going to be putting in here. As I suggested, I've got some fresh ginger. So we've got some ginger in our spice mixture, as well as some fresh ginger that's going to go in here. So ginger is interesting because it's got some really fresh flavors. I love it with seafood. And one of the ways that, people sometimes don't know how to peel a ginger. And to peel a ginger, because there is a shell that's on it, I usually don't use a knife, but I use a spoon. Okay, so to peel a ginger, I take a spoon and kind of just brush the edge of the spoon against the ginger, or the ginger against the spoon here, and it cleans up the outside of the ginger. And that way you really don't lose a whole lot of the ginger. It's not cheap, but it's not expensive either. So kind of you get a picture of that. So that's kind of the ginger. I've actually got it peeled and ready and chopped. Okay, so this fish, I want to make sure it doesn't stick. So as you saw, I gave it a little shake. Just it needs to cook. So when you're cooking fish, it's not like cooking steak or chicken. You can't turn it over 3, 4, 5 times. So you want to get it cooking easy, sizzling in the pan. You give it a little shake, make sure it's not sticking. And now I'm going to start making it flavorful, our pan here, with some nice flavors along with it. So I'm going to add in some chopped garlic first. So I've chopped some garlic, and I'm going to put that into the pan around the sides of it. Now talking about aromatics, I'll tell you what, this is awesome. It's starting to smell great. As you can hear, I'll pick this up so you can get a visual on that. The garlic is in the pan. The fish is starting to cook. I'm going to also put in a little bit of ginger. Now I've got the chopped ginger that's going into the pan here. And now the aromatics are coming out. Aromatics means it smells great. It smells delicious and wonderful. And that's kind of really what you want to do when you're cooking it and enjoying. So into that pan also, I've got a little bit of red onion. So to add in a little bit more flavors, they're going to go in there. And these I'm adding right into the pan. And then give that a little flip now. Okay, so as these start to cook, the ginger, garlic, and onion are cooking, and now I'm going to take the fish and give that a flip over. Okay, so I turn that over with a fish spatula. Okay, as you can see, a fish spatula is nothing but a big, very light spatula, so it carefully gets in under the fish, because that's kind of really what you want to do. You want to get in under the fish without breaking it in that sort of fashion. So now with that, I'm going to add in a little bit of lime juice. We've got some nice rich flavors. The lime juice adds a little acidity to this. Also some fresh orange juice. Okay, we're in citrus season right now. Beautiful oranges that are out there. I squeezed some fresh orange juice for this dish. So now we're going to take this and going to take that and actually bring it to a simmer. Okay, so you've got the juices of the fish. You've got the spices that are in there. Lime juice and orange juice is a nice blend. With that comes to a boil. And again, I'll just sort of shake it and kind of glaze the fish. So I'm going to take that and moisten the fish with what we're cooking with. And I want that to continue to cook, so I'm going to leave that there. And also I'm going to then add in some of my mango. Okay, so we've got some mango that's going to go in all around. And this mango is ripe, but not too sweet, which is really what I like about this. It's not too sweet, so it's again going to balance out our acidity and our flavors that are going on there. So this is going to take a few minutes to cook. Utilizing spices, beautiful fresh fish, seasonal ingredients. That's what cooking should be about. That's kind of like the secrets of good cooking, fresh ingredients, cooking sustainably, utilizing what's in the market, what's fresh, what's available. And it really does not take that long to cook. If this was a thicker piece of fish, mahi does come thicker. This is towards the end, towards the tail. So it's a thin piece of fish. So it's going to cook quickly. If it was going to take longer, I would cook this slower. Or sometimes one of the tricks I do is I preheat the oven to about 350 degrees and take the whole pan and put that in at this point so that it will cook and slowly come to temperature. Because one of the things that you want to make sure with fresh fish is you want to make sure that you don't overcook it. Once it's overcooked, you cannot add flavor into it. So, you know, it gets very dry. So here I've got a plate that I'm going to utilize. I'm going to take a little bit of fresh cilantro, okay, and kind of just put that into the sauce. Okay, talk about the sauce that we're making here. I do want to taste it now, give it see if it's the flavor. Wow, the spices are great. That's really where we want to be. So as we do, I'm going to take the fish here and just place the fish fillets in and on there. Then I'm going to take my spoon and kind of just add the sauce, add the sauces that are going on in there. This is looking delicious, I'll tell you what. Okay, got that. Going to add in a little bit more of the fresh cilantro. And as you see, I'm taking this cilantro, fresh leaves, and just not chopping it, but tearing it. It also releases a little bit of the essentials oils like that in that fashion. As promised, I'm going to take our mango that I cut for garnish and put that on the plate. And as we say, voila. Okay, really easy, lots of fun, delicious mahi with Creole spices. Okay, so hope you guys are all enjoying it. I'm going to open for questions in a moment, but also it's just so you know, I've got another in this series in February, and we'll send you more information about what I'm doing, the deep dark secrets of chocolate in February. I'll tell you what, it's something you want to see.
This looks absolutely not just beautiful, but wonderful. And you make it look so simple. We had a couple questions, so other people want to throw in their questions. Let's get started. We have a few minutes. Let's hear what Alan answers. So
Sure.
please submit your questions.
Okay, I'm actually going to need someone to read it because I don't have a screen.
Okay.
If you,
Okay. Are there bones in the fish closer to the tail?
okay, good. No, the bone, when you're filleting a fish, on a mahi, you don't have bones. There's a little bit of rib cage bones up to the near the top, but most of the whole fillet has no bones. Okay, and that's why you're filleting a fish, which means taking it off of the bone.
Okay. People are asking, can we do this without pepper flakes?
Sure, absolutely. The pepper flakes added heat, and I love that. You can do it with, if you want to put a little bit of black pepper in. I like the warmth of the pepper. The pepper flakes, this is not spicy, but it adds a really nice, wonderful element to it.
Wonderful.
Chef
How
Allen,
much
where
lime,
do you
how much
store
lime
your-
juice?
No, sorry.
I'm sorry, wait, here, do that. How much lime juice and how much orange juice?
Okay, so lime juice, again, it's balancing it. So with the lime juice, I probably have about a tablespoon of lime juice and about a quarter cup of orange juice.
Okay.
Or when I squoze it, just so you know, it was like one large wedge of lime and it was 2 oranges. It's I squoze earlier.
Okay. Hannah, go ahead.
Chef Allen, where do you buy your fish? And people were also asking about where do you buy your spices?
Okay, good. Well, let's start off with the fish. The fish, I was over at Delaware Chicken Farm, Delaware, over on 441. Awesome fish. I always liked it. They've got really fresh fish. That's really my favorite spot in our neighborhood for fish. As towards spices, there's a lot of different spice outlets. Online, you can get some beautiful spices. Spice Wallace sells them online. But if not, try to buy, like I said, smaller organic spices. And someone like Whole Foods or Publix, they're fine. They really do source and they do go through it very quickly. You don't want to go into a dusty store that has old spices, though. You want to find it so that it is rotated and follow through.
We also had some questions about nutmeg and mace. Can you just talk about it and what mace is used for?
Sure. Okay. I don't have any mace in front of me, but I do have a couple nutmegs. Okay. So that's the seed and the shell. Actually, it dries out and then the nutmeg is in this. But the outer ring of this is sort of like a netting of mace. And the mace, first off, is a very mild version of the nutmeg. Nutmeg is kind of pungent. Okay, so mace can be crumbled up, and I would use mace if you're making a sweet Danish, which of course everybody makes sweet Danish. But I'll tell you what, if you make banana bread or you make mango bread, try a little bit of mace in it. Okay, it's going to add a nice, interesting flavor to it. Whereas nutmeg is a bit more pungent, and nutmeg, usually you have a little nutmeg grater. It's like a very fun, or you can use a microplane. Everybody uses microplanes today. Microplane this fresh onto a roasted meat or grilled steak. It's awesome. Really nice flavor. Roasting pork, roasting chicken, roast, and also very much for stews. If you're in for a stew, if you want to make your own tomato sauce, try a touch of nutmeg in it. Spinach, love it on spinach. That's a classic. Spinach souffle, or even just sauteed spinach with pine nuts and olive oil and a little bit of nutmeg. It's really delicious.
Fern, you're on mute.
When you use lime juice, do you reduce the cooking time?
When I use lime juice, no, it's I like the acidity of lime juice, and so that I utilize it to balance out the olive oil and the richness of the dish. And so that that with the orange juice, the orange and lime together, because I find the orange would make it almost too sweet as a for a sauce.
Gotcha.
So by having the spices that we have in there that are in the sauce, because what happens, even though we didn't put it into the sauce directly, but on the flesh of the fish, we had the spices, and as we cooked it, they also released their flavors into the pan, and then we added the juices of the lime juice, and that sort of deglazed the pan, brought out all of the spice that was stuck to the pan, and by adding the orange juice also, we added that in, and so that all the cooked flavors of the spices went into the sauce.
Very interesting. Thank you. Let me ask you, you said that we can reach you on Instagram for the spices and the recipes.
Yes.
Would you give us, is it your address, your Instagram address?
Sure. My Instagram address is Chef Alan Susser, and you'll see these and as well as many others. Yeah, what I'm going to do is on Friday, I give you a couple of days to sign in and leave your name there. I'm going to select 3 winners and send the spice to you in the mail. So at that point, when I let you know you're a winner, you'll give me your address and I'll send it out to you, a nice spice packet with this recipe. Since with COVID, I can't invite you over for dinner.
Chef Alan, I posted your Instagram address on the chat, and I already signed in so that I want to be considered as one of your winners. No.
Awesome.
I already took care of it. I'm not waiting 3 days.
No pressure. No pressure.
Love it.
Well, we want to thank you for an amazing presentation. You presented your wonderful main course, and on February 9th, we're going to go to desserts when Chef Alan brings us the secrets of dark chocolate and recipes, and from his green fig and lionfish newest publication. We're very excited about that. And we want to thank you. We want you to stay safe and keep thinking about desserts and these wonderful meals and recipes you are providing. You're getting a lot of thanks from everyone here, Alan.
Awesome.
And on behalf of the Friends of the Library, you're amazing. So thank you, and a happy New Year, a healthy New Year to all of us.
Thank you. We've got a great neighborhood. So glad to be able to do this with you. So enjoy it. Enjoy this. As I picked chocolate for next month because it's coming up to Valentine's Day. So maybe we can cook together some chocolate and have some fun.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night. A pleasure.
Good night.